Hello everyone, today we are going to talk about the Q in PSQ plus signal phrases. So what is PSQ? It stands for paraphrase, summarize, and quote. So when you read an authority source when you're conducting your research and you use that source in your paper by paraphrasing, summarizing, or quoting the source, that is PSQ. And when you do that, you must include a works cited citation for that source, as well as in-text citations for every sentence that you paraphrase, summarize, or quote. Today, we're going to focus on quotes. So what about Q? To quote is to use 3+ words directly from the authority source. So even if you write a sentence with part of the words being your own and 3 or more words coming from the text, you still need to put quotation marks around those words that you quote because it came directly from the text, and you still need to put a citation at the end of the sentence, and you have to include a citation for that source in your works cited. So a quote, 3 words or more, you need to go ahead and put quotation marks around it and cite that. Always put quotation marks around the words that you quote. The words that you quote are words that come directly from your text. You put quotation marks around them. In-text citations. So you're going to add an in-text citation at the end of every quote. So every time you write a quote, you add an in-text citation. You're using MLA format, so you need to make sure that you format your citation correctly. Now, just a quick note, if you quote 4 or more lines, then you need to use what's called a block quote, and a block quote is formatted differently from what I'm going to show you today, so you would need to look it up exactly how it is done. Chances are you're not going to use a block quote in this class for this particular paper, but as you go forward and you write longer papers, you might need to use a block quote on occasion. So you're going to start your quote with a signal phrase. Okay, and let me show you what a signal phrase is. I prefer that you start your quotes with signal phrase because A, it makes more sense in context and it helps the reader kind of understand where you're coming from and what authority source it's coming from, and it makes the citation part of it a little simpler. So what is a signal phrase? It's when you take the last name of the authority source, such as Jones, and you say words like, according to Jones, and then you have your quote, or Jones argued, and then you have your quote. Jones stated, quote. Jones insisted, quote. Jones observed, quote. Jones claims, quote. Jones asserts, quote. And every time you use a signal phrase, you do want to use some different words. You don't want to use the same word over and over again. You can just Google signal phrases. There's lots of words out there to help you choose the right one specifically for what you're trying to quote. But anytime that you use a quotation, do the signal phrase first, and you do according to Jones, comma, quotation mark, quote, quotation mark, citation in parentheses, period. So you're going to end your quote with an in-text citation, and here's an example. According to Jones, notice the comma, notice the quotation marks, social media has changed the way humans communicate in a disturbing way. Notice the quotation marks. Notice that there is not a period at the end of way, even though there may be a period at the end of way in the text itself. The sentence is not considered complete when you're creating a citation until the citation is also there and you put the period behind the citation. And yes, we are going to be persnickety about it. There are professors who will mark you down and will not take your paper if you do not do these things correctly. So it's important that you do it correctly. So if you start your quote with a signal phrase, then all you need to do is put the page number where that quote came from in your source as your in-text citation. Of course, you would also need a full, complete citation in MLA format in your works cited for that specific source as well. So you don't have a signal phrase? You start it without a signal phrase, then you put it in quotation marks, and then you put the name of the author, space, and the page number within parentheses, and then you put your period. There's a lot of little tricks to have to learn as well. So the first time that you PSQ a specific author, you must use their last name and page number. For example, Jones 47 within the parentheses. If you use the signal phrase according to Jones, then you have the page number at the end of your citation. It makes it a little easier when you use the signal phrases. The next time, the second time you quote the author, you only need to use the page number. You don't have to use a signal phrase again. So for example, let's say you do a quote according to Jones, you have your quote, you have your page number, and then down a little bit further, you paraphrase and summarize something from the same source that was written by Jones, and now all you need is the page number at the end of your sentence that you paraphrased or summarized. If you do a quote again, you might want to go ahead and use another signal phrase just to keep things clear. If you change authors, then you start the process all over again. What you're trying to do is keep the authors in order that you're quoting or that you're summarizing or paraphrasing, so that the reader understands who said what. Now, if a quote comes from page 1, you only need to use the author's last name, Jones. But if it comes from page 2+, you also need the page number. And this is only when you don't have a signal phrase. So it's real important that you use your signal phrases, because it does make things a little simpler when you do your in-text citations. Well, what happens if you have more than one author? Wow. So you have 2 authors, then you have to say Jones and Smith, according to Jones and Smith. You have 3+ authors, then you would say Jones, comma, et al. Notice the period inside the parentheses with the period at the end. And if you do a signal phrase, then it's according to Jones et al. And then you have your quote. The page number rule stays the same. You don't have an author in all. What do you do? Well, if it's a short work, like an article, a short story, a poem, or a web page, then you put the name, the title in the parentheses instead, and you put that in quotation marks. If it's a long work, like a book, a film, a TV series, or an entire website, then you put the title and you put it in italics. You also add a page number if it's available, so the page number rules pretty much stay the same. Now here's just a little thing that you might need to know. So let's say, for example, you go to a web page and you read an article. If the web page is one scrolling page, then it's considered page 1. If you click over to a new page, that next page is page 2, and so forth and thereon. So one scrolling web page, you would consider it page 1, the entire article. Now just to wrap up, when you have a quote, 3+ more words, we consider it a quote if it's coming directly from the text. You put quotation marks around quotes. It's best to use signal phrases. That's what I'm going to be looking for and expecting. Then you need your in-text citations in MLA format. So if you have any trouble, there are some MLA resources in Blackboard that you can go and you can look up some of these things. You can always just Google MLA quote in-text citations and you should be able to find things. Just make sure that whatever you look at is MLA 8th edition. 8th edition is only a couple of years old, so there's a lot of stuff on the internet out there that's 7th edition, and things have changed, so you want to make sure you're using 8th edition. The other thing you can do is go over to the Writing Center, because those folks over there are absolute experts at looking this up. They look at this stuff every single day, all day, looking at everyone's papers all across the campus. So you can go over there and you can say, hey, did I do my in-text citations right? Does my works cited look correct? They can help you out with that. That way, when you turn your paper in, you can feel confident. So this is your basics for how you do in-text citations for quotes And of course, anything you quote, you need to make sure there's a citation for your works cited as well.